Hi there, welcome back to Apatros Review. In this episode, 5 Graves for a Medium, known in America as Terror Creatures from the Grave, directed by Massimo Pupillo in year 1965. Hi there, welcome back to Apatros Review, your guide to the wild world of science fiction, action, horror cinema, with me, your host, Mila Zepka. Most well known, just got a channel name. Now in this episode, we take a look at another one of those films on the Pure Terror 50 film box set from Mill Creek. This was an Italian film, starring Barbara Steele, yes, and this is actually, in Italian it's called 5 Graves for a Medium. In America it's known as Terror Creatures from the Grave. And this film came out in Italy on the 23rd of June 1965, and in the USA on the April 1966. It was directed by Massimo Pupillo, of Ralph Zucker, who was just like one of the producers, was credited. There's some confusion over who directed the film, but that's the case. Anyway. Now this is available in the Mill Creek Pure Terror 50 film box set, but in a very bad quality print. It looks like a very old film reel being projected on a screen with a camera pointing at it, then transferred to VHS before being transferred to this set. The picture is very soft, the resolution is absolutely the pits, and the age wear is horribly severe. And actually this is also this print is actually the American version, but I'll talk about it later. An attorney's assistant in the small European town of Ratsen in the year 1911 AD, so pretty much about 110 years ago, this film was set, opens a letter meant for his boss from a client asking him to come over to his client's mansion in the country town of Bergerville to settle his estate. Since his boss is away somewhere, the assistant decides to fill in for him. He figures this will be a cakewalk, but upon arriving at the client's mansion, which was originally used as a plague hospital during the time of the Black Death, and the victims of the plague were buried in the mansion's grounds, as well as the bodies of those who executed deliberately spreading the plague. Their severed hands are displayed in the mansion's foyer. He learns that the client has been dead for almost a full year, and that in a couple of days' time, his body, which has been buried in the grounds amongst the bodies of the old plague victims he has been researching during his lifetime, will be moved to his crypt on his last wishes. Trying to leave, the assistant's car ends up being disabled by a rogue owl, and being forced to stay in the gloomy mansion with the late client's wife and daughter. The poor sap starts learning that the 5 people who had been present when the client had died, by supposedly breaking his neck by falling down a flight of stairs, had been dying of mysteriously violent means, one by one. The assistant then finds himself in the middle of a crossfire between the witnesses, who seem to have had more direct role in the client's death than they would like to admit, and the client himself, who during his lifetime had been dabbling in the black arts, and has joined the ranks of the plague carriers he had been trying to contact from beyond the grave, and the under corpses are now under his control to enact his revenge. This is essentially an Italian Gothic horror feature from the genre's heyday during the 1960s, featuring the icon of Gothic horror, actress Barbara Steele, in a secondary role, and plenty of monochrome atmospherics that the Italians used to help them compete against Hammer films and Roger Corman's Edgar Allan Poe adaptations at the same time, although this film's claims of being based on a Poe story should be taken with a healthy skepticism. The atmosphere is fairly good for the time, with a decent setup. By the way, the American prints have an unrelated opening scene, and this review print is of the American print, under the US title of Terror Creatures from the Grave, where some blood gets trampled to death by a horse, with his face severely battered to the point that his eye gets poked out. Something that was meant to have American audiences getting a reason to keep their asses in the cinema seats for an 81-minute film. Now, typical of both the Italian Gothic and Edgar Allan Poe style cycle, the atmosphere, and the acting is decent. Steele was repeatedly initially difficult to work with at the start of the shoot, but after director Massimo Pupillo chewed her out in front of the cast and crew, she changed her attitude and became wonderful to work with to the end of the shoot. The film's start is matched by the climax, which, while a bit on the random side of things, does get rousing, with unseen zombies killing the guilty. So this is technically a zombie film, but you don't see the zombies. Basically, like actually from the POV sort of thing. And the innocent, the protagonist's assistant and the client's daughter, survived by sheer dying to the pure rainfall coming to cleanse them of the plague. Not to mention some surprisingly gory deaths for the 1960s period, peppered throughout, with the highlight being the wheelchair guy icing himself by placing a good sword in the dresser, then driving his wheelchair towards it, thus impaling himself. Although this differs in the Italian print where he simply hangs himself apparently, with his guts coming out of his chest in gory monochrome. Reminds me of the raw chicken parts covered in Bosco chocolate sauce in the original Night of the Living Dead. But this film is seriously uneven. In between the decent parts are a whole lot of dullness, and some frustrating close calls on the nudity front, only barebacks and very brief nip slips, of which my public domain review print is even less concerned with showing, of which robs this film of potential C+, leaving it at the C rung of my grading ladder. So, strictly average at best. But like I said, it's not terrible. It's got some pretty decent atmosphere, and the acting is decent too, but just because of the unevenness. Could have been C+, but it just gets a C. Now for gore and nudity. As mentioned, some surprisingly gory deaths in the 1960s, with blows to the head, acid pouring on faces. Fortunately, this kind of thing a heck of a lot better 20 years later. And suicide impalings in between sword-arm dresses and wheelchairs. In fact, in that opening scene, which is only for the American print, is pretty damn gnarly for the time period. As for nudity, only bare backs and extremely brief nipple flashings. But even those brief glances are hobbled by Mill Creek's print's bad picture quality. Although not the worst print on the pure terror set, that design goes to films like Monster and Night Fright. Okay, that's it for that one. Now, and like I said, the actual title for this film is Five Graves for a Medium. In America, it's known as Terror Creatures in the Grave. Okay, hope you guys enjoy that. Now, I do not do requests, but if you want to know of a particular film or collection, just if you have any questions about DVDs, just hit me up in the comment section. I'll be happy to answer. Okay, guys, see ya. Take care. Take it easy. See ya.